everybody. Thank you for coming to Tapley Memorial Hall. My name is Laura Silly with the Danvers Historical Society, and we're thrilled that Dan Gagnon agreed to present tonight. We're really thrilled for his upcoming publication. Dan grew up in Danvers, so he's very knowledgeable, and of course you probably know him better than I do, and very welcoming of all your questions, and I want to welcome.
Thanks for coming out. So this evening, we're going to be talking a little bit about the witch trials. In particular, not so much what happens in 1692 during the witch trials, which is well written about, well covered, but more so what happens afterwards. Not so much time is given to how people remembered in the later centuries, and particularly here with the Danvers Historical Society being really involved in some of this remembrance. It's fitting that we end up here in Tapley Hall. So to start with, we kind of have a moment that's a little dark, but we have a gravestone over across town. This is the grave of George Jacobs Sr. He's one of the 19 individuals executed for witchcraft in 1692. When he is executed, he's executed in Salem, near Proctor's Ledge, so we believe. With several of the victims, we think their families had reburied them, but it's not until 1992 that he is publicly buried. He has a tombstone. His name is carved in stone. Finally, he will be remembered after 300 years of being hidden. He was hidden away in a box. He was buried in an unmarked grave. He winds up sitting in closets under dining room tables. He shows up at an exhibit at a yard sale at Danvers High School. He has a bizarre journey to finally get to August 1992. And although it seems like excellent progress, that he's memorialized by the community, big service is held, he is buried just a couple steps away from a far more significant memorial to Rebecca Nurse in the same cemetery. So she was remembered way back in 1885 with a memorial. Hundreds of people turned out. Her legacy is written on the stone as well as a stone near it to her supporters. So she is not remembered equally to him. And he really gets left out to this point, despite really having similar cases in 1692. And so what we're going to explore is why do these two people have such different memorials in the same cemetery? So what we'll be talking about is really kind of three parts here tonight. I'm going to talk about kind of what the reason I think is for this difference based on what I've looked at. We're going to talk briefly about what happens to them in 1692. So the important part being that they are really similar cases. And we're going to talk about how Nurse and Jacobs were memorialized after 1692. Really the crux of this, the photo we begin with. So as we move on, I promise this is the only table we'll be looking at this evening. But what this shows is really how similar these two individuals are. We have that they both, when they're accused in 1692, they maintain their innocence, they deny these charges, the impossible charges that they're somehow doing magic against other people, that somehow they've signed a contract with the devil, it's impossible. Yet despite this, they're both found guilty and they're both executed. Another similarities, they have similar socioeconomic backgrounds, they're both from farming families, kind of at the edge of Salem Village, going into Salem Town. George Jacobs, technically on the Salem Town side, Rebecca Nurse on the Salem Village side, which is now Danvers. But there's no real difference there. What that rules out is maybe one victim would be much more remembered if one family were millionaires and one family were not millionaires. That could be a variable. But it's not really something that we see. And as they're first remembered in the 19th century, the memorial in 1885, I examined how historians in the 19th century wrote about them, because those would have been the books that the memorial constructors would have read. And if one book portrayed one as a saint and one as, a demon, well, I could explain it as well. But really, they're treated fairly. They're both portrayed as innocent, forcefully maintaining their innocence. So no no real difference there. And the final similarity is they both have a strong physical legacy. Their houses survived, the Nurse house until today, George Jacobs' house until about 1940. Their descendants also live on their farms for at least a century and a half afterwards, and then in the same area, moving from there. And they also are both in the same community. They're both in Danvers. I know one was in Topsfield and one was in Danvers. Potentially, people in Topsfield kind of came to terms with the witch hunt before people in Danvers or something such as that, but that's not really something that is there. The last column, though, it's a similarity in terms of physical legacy with kind of an asterisk. George Jacobs actually has a better physical legacy than Rebecca Nurse. So if anything in that column, he actually would have the advantage, even though at the end Rebecca Nurse winds up with the big memorial a century ahead of time. So with George Jacobs, he walked with 2 canes, and his canes were still existing. They were in the Essex Institute in Salem, now the Peabody Essex Museum. You can still go see them. And they knew where his grave was, which is a big benefit. With Rebecca Nurse, there was rumors she's reburied somewhere in that cemetery. Nobody knows where. So when they build a memorial to her, they just put it in the center. It doesn't really mark her grave. That's why it's a memorial, it's not really a grave marker. But with him, they knew the exact spot where he was. Got nothing. And lastly, yes, his family still lived on his farm in 1885 when the memorials were built. Nurse family, not so much anymore. So now I see some of the differences. There's a few potential differences between these cases. First one is probably the most straightforward, that one of them was a woman, one of them was a man. That's a clear difference to look at that point in time. Now with gender, we're talking about a witch trial. That is a large theme. It's something that historians now really talk about. Back in the 19th century, they didn't really talk about that as a historical issue. But in the 1600s, as you can see up here, women were far more likely to be accused of witchcraft than men. It really was a crime associated with women, though in the Salem witch trials there are men who were accused and executed like George Jacobs. But here, so 78% of those cases that have been thoroughly looked through, and we actually know the gender. There's a couple of cases that we know that somebody was executed for witchcraft, and we don't actually know the gender. So excluding those, 78% were women. This association in the years after 1692, again, puts George Jacobs at the advantage, surprisingly. With Rebecca Nurse, to be frank, as a woman, she would have been seen as more suspicious, and it would have been more likely that she would have actually been guilty to many people in that day and age. Whereas George Jacobs, being a man accused of a crime that men usually weren't accused of, more people would have been generally skeptical that a man would be guilty of such a thing. So again, you have the opposite of what you'd imagine. And with gender, as it changes, we also need to think about gender in the 1880s, when they built the memorial. And oftentimes, these people who've been accused of witchcraft and executed like today, they're often held up on a pedestal, that they stood up for justice in their day, and rightfully so, it's true. But particularly now, there's many historians who focus in on women challenging the roles of society in the witch trials, and that leading to people being accused. But that doesn't happen until after. The real first example of that I came across is 1893, where memorial was built in 1885. So that doesn't really fit there. So gender, again, Jacobs has the advantage. Now tourism, you can't talk about Salem witchcraft without all of the Halloween and witch tourism, of course, unfortunately. So this had to be something looked into. Really doesn't affect the way that everything turns out. In 1800s, Salem wasn't a witch city yet. There really wasn't witch tourism. The only tourism was really because it was a nice seaport in that day and age. It's not until the Great Depression they start to gear towards some witchcraft knickknacks, and really the 1970s. So neither family had any money to be made by memorializing someone, such as today, if one were to construct some sort of site related to the witch trials in Salem, there could potentially be money to be made off of such a proposition. And so there we have a guidebook we actually have at the Nurse house from 1908, one of the early guidebooks to the city of Salem. At that day and age, you could go see the Nurse house for about a dime in the admission. And so what I think is the real reason between the two, between these two cases, the real disparity is the actions their family took in 1692. Because in the centuries following, it's their families that do the memorializing, and they're thinking of their family legacy in mind. They think of the legacy of the individual, but also the Nurse family and the Jacobs family. With Rebecca Nurse, as we'll see in a minute, her family really supports her. They go to all ends to try to prove that she is not guilty. They collect signatures on a petition. They testify in court. Many of her daughters testify on her behalf in particular. Her sons help gather the signatures. Her sons, one son and son-in-law, they go to the Putnam family who accused her, and they kind of ask them questions, trying to figure out like, what their motive was, how they can kind of argue against it in court. So they go to great lengths. And Rebecca's husband, Francis, had served on many juries, and grand juries, so he knew the process, he knew what to do, he knew how to argue. So there's really no negative aspect of the Nurse family's legacy there. But with Jacobs, we have a very different situation. So he forcefully maintains his innocence. But his own granddaughter is accused at the same time, and she turns on him. She confesses to witchcraft. Of course, you can't confess, it's not real. But she claims that she is indeed a witch. She's really kind of scared into it. And she testifies against him before then saying it was all a lie. And of course, so at the bottom here, the Jacobs family can't think about the way that George forcefully maintains innocence, honorably looking for justice, without remembering that Margaret's really complicit in George Jacobs getting killed. She also testifies against John Proctor, who's killed. She testifies against several other women that spend months and months in jail. And so that's really the legacy that if you put up a memorial to Jacobs, you kind of also have to dig that up. That's what they really did in 1692, our two main players here. This is a map of sites in the life of Rebecca Nurse. So we have the Danvers, PBD, Salem area. And Rebecca Nurse, born in 1621, we think, so she's baptized far across in England. She grew up on the east coast of England until she's 14. Comes over and she lives down by the Home for the Deaf, kind of near Fenwick, along the Crane River. That little triangle is where her family lives. She gets married, moves in with Francis Nurse along Bridge Street in Salem. They live there for an amount of time. Kind of between when she gets married and when she moves to Salem Village, the Danvers area, not for Sinclair. They at some point own land out here by the Salem Country Club. That's not like a geographic shape of their farm, it's just a dot because it's really not enough information to tell exactly where their farm was. But then they move to Salem Village to Danvers, and this is their farm, which is a good chunk. They split it between some of their children. There's really like 5 families living there. But that's where she is when the witch trials begin. This is Salem Village, very similar map. And Salem Village is almost the same as Danvers in terms of the border. The difference is it also had a chunk of Middleton, and it did not have Danvers for it. But other than that, it's most of the lines are the same. But with the witch hunt, this is 172 people accused in less than a year. We have the 19 hanged, once pressed to death for refusing to plead. The whole county is in chaos. People are accused as far away as Maine, as far south as below Boston, west going to Woburn, places like that. It really brings the government to a crisis, the government of Massachusetts. And so we also have many, all 172 at some point in time, are in terrible jails. There's some in Charlestown, Boston. Rebecca Nurse went to the Salem jail, then the Boston jail. She came back to the Salem jail. People were dying in jail with her. It was really hot. They weren't given proper food. That's miserable. And they are, of course, as I mentioned, it's an impossible crime. None of these people had signed up with the devil to cast magic against others. It's not at all possible. But that's what they're accused of doing. Using their powers to harm, torture, and afflict is the words that's always used. Afflict. Like to make someone sick is roughly what that is. So it begins, we got a nice cellar. This is where the parsonage was, where Reverend Paris lived, and it begins in the minister's house. 2 young girls in this household are unwell. They're rolling around on the floor, screaming, crawling under furniture, jumping off of chairs, and he's kind of scared and doesn't have any idea why these two kids in his household are suddenly acting strange. He really tries to button it down for about a month, and he doesn't want people to know that this really bizarre incidents are going on in his household. He calls friends over, but then eventually word gets out. And once word gets out, they call a doctor. It's the doctor who says it must be witchcraft because he could not figure out what it was. And he said there can't be a medical explanation, that it must be witchcraft. And that's when the witch hunt begins. Rebecca Nurse is accused in March. This had begun at the end of January into February. So she's among the first half dozen accused. Those before her have been suspicious for some reason or another. Some had disputes with their neighbors. Some had inheritance disputes. One Tituba was the minister's slave, who of course just had a lower position in society. Also wasn't a Puritan like everyone else, so that would have made her a little bit more suspicious. With Rebecca Nurse, a nice picture of the nurse house. So the quick version is that she was really unwell. She's 71 at this point in time. And George Jacobs is even older than her. Early 80s, somewhere around there. I'm not exactly sure. So she's sick, she's in bed, she's unwell, and friends come to see her. And they say, some people in the village have been mentioning your name. Is there any truth to this? We're kind of concerned about you. And she says her famous line of being as innocent as the child unborn. Despite that, she's arrested just a couple days later, brought in for questioning at the meeting house, and her accusers vary in age. It's often portrayed as teenage girls, early young girls lodging the accusations. Most were lodged by adults, actually. And her prime accuser, or two accusers, are really Mrs. Ann Putnam, who's 31, and her daughter, Ann Putnam Jr., who is 12, who is certainly younger. She goes before a grand jury. They indict her. That's 18 jurors who think, yeah, there's enough evidence against her. Then she goes to her trial. 12 jurors. First, they come back, and Francis's defense has worked of her. They find her not guilty. And then the courtroom erupts into such bedlam and chaos, and the judges are furious. They're going to indict her again on slightly different charges just to get her guilty. And the jury leaves. They come back and they ask her a few more questions. They're still not going to find her guilty at that point, but they want to ask her a few more questions. And her being so ill and so sick, and maybe even kind of deaf, she either doesn't answer or gives them less than adequate answers. So they leave again, and it's the third time that they find her guilty. Her family still does not give up, even at that point. They petition the governor of Massachusetts. He grants a reprieve, which isn't a pardon. The reprieve is just, they're going to put off executing you until they kind of re-examine your case. So it's really more of like a delay. And once that happens, somebody in Salem lobbies him, and he takes away the reprieve, and she is executed in July. We only know that it was a Salem gentleman. We don't know a name. We're not quite sure who it was or who it could have been. So she's executed. And then George Jacobs is accused a little later than she was, May. He's accused by a slightly younger group overall on average. He, though, with all of these accusers, they submit testimony, they submit documents accusing him of doing various things. He was being in his early 80s, he had really bad arthritis, he walked with 2 canes, he could barely get around. Yet they claim that he used magic to be able to appear in places where he wasn't and allegedly hurt them with his canes that in reality he couldn't, even pick up and walk with. Yet somehow in his spectral witch form he could hurt people with. And they all call him a dreadful wizard in their written testimony. They use many of the same phrases because looking up here, Ann Putnam Jr., her dad wrote all of those accusations by these young women. So he, using the same phrases and all of them, clearly he has maybe just as much a role in authoring these accusations as the young women who are officially, claiming that it's their accusation. So we have something really suspicious to begin with. Sarah Churchill later comes out and tells several women in the village, after his first examination, at the very beginning, that what she said against him was not true. Yet it continues to go forward, and that claim just is disregarded. He, confronted with these witchcraft accusations, tells the judges, well, burn me or hang me. I will stand in the truth of Christ. I know nothing of it. Know nothing of witchcraft. So there's no ambiguity that he is saying that he is very innocent. Despite this, his case is brought down by Margaret. There was a lot of text on the slide, which I wasn't incredibly comfortable with. But I just wanted to show you a couple of the documents that Margaret submits against him. We don't know a lot about her case. Her files are not ever located as to the testimony from her trial. So what we have is kind of files from other cases that sort of mention her. We know she testified against George. We don't know what she said. So we kind of have to piece it together that way. So at George Jacobs' hearing, this other guy, Joseph Flint, later says that he went in to see George Jacobs, who was in a separate room as Margaret's being questioned. And he tells George, your granddaughter just confessed, that she said she set her hand to the devil's book. She literally signed a contract with the devil. She then testifies against him at some point. He's found guilty. And then right before his accusation, she comes out and writes to the judges saying, everything I said was a lie. Don't execute my grandfather. It was not true. And her reasoning here, she says, the accusers told me that if I would not confess, and then accuse the grandfather, I would be put down into the dungeon and hanged. But if I would confess, I should have my life, which did so affright me with my vile and wicked heart. To save my life, I made the confession I did. So she outright says that she's intimidated into giving false evidence. And at the end, her reason for changing her mind, but I said it's altogether false. And I could not contain myself before I denied my confession. So really, guilt gets her in the last week before George Jacobs is executed anyway. So even despite this, his case is not re-examined. He's hanged August 19th with several others. And that takes us to after 1692, our last segment here, really the crux of the presentation. So one thing after 1692 that I found looking through petitions people sent to the Massachusetts government is many of these families wanted to clear the names of their mothers, fathers, brothers, sisters that were accused of witchcraft, which is certainly looking for justice. But it's not really memorializing them, and in particular, family members had a fair amount to gain from clearing the names of their relatives as well. So there's two petitions here, one signed by the Nurse family and others, and one signed by the Nurse and the Jacobs family. What it comes down to is they're looking out for their family's reputations as well. They want to get the infamy from the names in memory, that none of their surviving relations nor prosperity may suffer reproach. They tell the government they want to clear these people's names because they're worried about their names, their children's family names, and how that stain could stay on the family. And in the last one there, they also would like to be remunerated as to what they, as to the debts they incurred in this process. For example, with the Nurse family, going to visit Rebecca Nurse in jail, it was really expensive to travel to Boston at that point. They brought her food when she was in jail because she was not properly fed, which was an enormous expense. And so many of the families other families suffer even more in terms of financial loss with things taken from them than the Nurse family. What we see here is really that the family has something to gain. But at this point in time, they are also both treated equally. Both families petition, both families clear their names. Their names are cleared in 1711. So up till that point, we don't really see a difference between the Nurse family and the Jacobs family. It's not till later that we do. So here we have 1885, which we saw the memorial in the center in our first photo. This is the Nurse family cemetery over behind the Nurse house off of Pine Street. The giant pine trees are still there. Been there since well before 1885, it looks like, but you can still see them. And so here we have the gathering with the dedication of the monument to Rebecca Nurse. This is the first monument of anybody in America who was accused of witchcraft to get their own monument to remember them. So it's really groundbreaking in that respect. Not just related to the Salem witch trials, but witch trials all over. This campaign, this project is spearheaded by her descendants. They form an association in the 1870s, working with the New England Genealogical Society, specifically to raise money for this project. This is what they had in mind from the beginning. And the reason this kind of happens in the 1870s is thinking of the uptick in historical interest patriotism, local history that happened in years around the bicentennial. Same thing happened during 1876. People are really interested in early American history. And today, if you mention the founding fathers, we think of the 1770s, George Washington, John Adams. Those people in the 1800s, if you use the phrase founding fathers, they thought you meant John Winthrop, John Endicott, and the Puritans. They were viewed as the founding fathers of America. So we have a different perception as to who started America than they did. But if they're thinking back to the Puritans in this decade, of course they're going to think back to the witch trials. And it's right around then, 1889, that the Historical Society is established. And the Historical Society's first president was a Putnam. So that ties in. A descendant of one of the Putnam's ordered Rebecca not those that accused Rebecca, so clarify that one. With our event, it is well reported all over the world. We have newspapers from all across the United States, Louisiana, Tennessee, Alabama, Virginia, that run giant stories on this event. We have of the fundraisers and then for the dedication, both parts of that are well reported. We have newspapers, I'm jumping ahead, we have our brochure from the event, the dedication of the monument. But with our newspapers, so we have the front of the Boston Globe with the giant section. We're going to have newspapers in Paris, newspapers in the Netherlands, England, Australia, all dealing with this event. And one important aspect of it is that it's also a community event. We have 600 people attend the dedication of the memorial. We have the First Church of Danvers, which was the church during the witch trials, present. And we have a local notable, John Greenleaf Whittier, the poet, lived in Danvers at the time, and he's the one commissioned to write the verse engraved on the stone. So you can big names. Whittier, very willingly and for free, wrote this poem. He was thrilled to be part of this project. It kind of fit with themes in his poetry. And he also insisted that his name never be put on the memorial, because he thought only Rebecca Nurse's name should be there. And he also writes something along the lines of, he's really not worried that he's ever going to be forgotten. So he doesn't need his name attached to this. People will remember that he did it. They do, so that turns out okay. One other thing about our nice front page of the Globe, if you look at the actual memorial, and then you look at what's portrayed in the Globe, through that and never actually seen what the Rebecca Nurse memorial looks like. But it takes up, we have the whole half the page that's dedicated to it. The whole half there. And we got some foreign newspapers here. We have Le Petit Journal in Paris that talks about it and also mentions it being the first time that the first monument to a witch victim. No, on the right, very nice German newspaper. It's not from Germany. It's from Minnesota. But it shows how even really diverse and faraway communities that you really expect had anything to do with this hear about it that way. And kind of as an aside, we have, when we think about the Salem witch trials, we always think about the city of Salem. We think about now the more commercialization, the more tourist aspect, as I started to mention. And so there's always been kind of a historical debate about which community really claims it as part of their community's history, and there's really been hope for people who are accused of race hard to name. So many communities are in on this. But there's also the question of which town or city really first confronts what their ancestors did. For many years in Salem Village and in Danvers, people didn't really want to talk about the witch trials because all of them had a grandfather or a great-grandmother or someone who was involved. And the guy or the gal living next door to you may have an ancestor who was involved on the other side. And so there is kind of an unwillingness to bring that up until the Nurse Memorial. So it really breaks the mold there. And another way that that's significant is, I was reading one book about the legacy of witch trials in the United States. And it kind of used this dedication ceremony as one moment that shows how the city of Salem confronted its role in the witch hunt. Specifically what the minister said. There's two ministers present at the dedication. There's Reverend Rice, there's another gentleman, Reverend Israel. Fielder Israel is his name. And this historian compares the two sermons that they gave, showing that one really forcefully confronts the community's heritage, which is the one up here, Rice, talking about the public interest of changing their ways. And the other minister says nice things, but it's not really like significant. It doesn't really change anything. It's no contrast with the past. But what was interesting is that they're crossed. The whole crux of that section of this book is how Reverend Rice showed that Salem was more enlightened. Salem, having gone through many religious changes, was better able to confront this terrible incident. Except it's really the Danvers minister that said all of that, which is not what you'd expect from this tiny little farming village still, a really religiously conservative at that point congregational church that had been Salem Village Church. And what this means is the way that that's kind of been looked at by historians over this time is really backwards, and it's incorrect. And simply because in this particular book, Rice was identified as Salem, and the other guys identified as Danvers. It's just a simple mistake of towns, but it really changes the way that it's perceived, and it really should be perceived in that way. And I got this photo. Rice was later the state representative for Danvers, so this is under his Massachusetts legislature yearbook. As we get to Jacob, so Jacob's probably has the more wild and interesting and bizarre life post-1692. His descendants are on his farm, as I said, until about 1940. In that time, they do nothing. They know where his grave is. This is a picture up here from 1892. There's actually a photograph, and this is kind of a drawing of the photograph. It's a descendant of his. He's standing at the fence, and he's pointing to the exact spot where George Jacobs was buried. So they know the exact spot. It's not secret. And what's interesting is not only do they not do anything about it, but they let someone else dig him up. They end up selling that field, despite knowing that he's right there. And they sell it in the 1850s, and so the guy who buys it, he hears, that field you just bought might be a convicted witch buried there. And so he decides, oh really? And he digs him up to see if this is true or if this is just some, ghost story. And they do dig him up, and it seems like it's him. They find his skull, they find many bones, and in general, he's in pretty good shape, but they can tell that it was, it looks like an older man. It's weird that he wouldn't be buried with his family for that day and age. That means it's clearly like an atypical situation. I don't know, that leads a little more credibility to the idea that it is Jacobs and not just some random person. But what happens is somebody, allegedly in Danversport, they take part of him when they bury him back in his grave. So what this is a drawing. It's one of the great images I got from the Danvers archives. It's a drawing of a photograph. A photograph I saw from PBS, but I couldn't use it in here. So this is the next closest thing. It looks exactly like this drawing though. This is a little glass bottle. It has red wax at the top, a little stopper with a ring. It's sealed with wax, I guess, to stop the air from getting in and out, I suppose is the intent. And inside are 2 finger bones, a nail, and a pin. They say the pin is somehow related to his clothes, something to the clothing he wore. The nail is supposedly from his coffin, and those are allegedly his 2 fingers that they put in this jar. The jar ends up owned by the Fowler family, who that big brick house at the Port Portage at the end of High Street. They had a large collection of witchcraft books that they donated to the PBS Museum around 1900. It actually starts their collection. They didn't really have a witchcraft collection before that. And they donate these. And so they stay in a little curiosity cupboard on Essex Street in Salem for a while. Now they're somewhere in the PBS Museum, probably the Rowley storage. But they do still exist. And are they actually his fingers? Can't really say for sure. But they're definitely documented going back to only a few years later. They do come from a family that lived near his farm. This is a level of credibility, but of course we can never know for sure until they're tested in some medical way. It's definitely weird. And so he, or the rest of them, reburied, forgotten about. People go about their business. They don't put up a grave for him. One thing they do, though, is that people at the Essex Institute in Salem, they hear about this. And someone paints what becomes a world-famous painting, one of the most famous paintings of the witch trial about George Jacobs. This was hanging at one point in Plummer Hall with a big staircase. So a prominent spot in Salem. The painting is, of course, in color ordinarily. Being in an art museum currently, you can't use the actual image of the painting without permission. So we have the Library of Congress version of the painting, which is black and white. But we got Jacobs kneeling down here, looking at the judges, asking for mercy. You have the accusers falling over, pointing at him. Someone else who's pointing at him there. People lunging, yelling. The judges look fairly stern when they're looking at him. And you also see his cane next to his feet. He had 2 canes, and those also around the same time that his alleged fingers are given to the museum. Also his 2 canes are as well. So those still exist. It was his family who donated those. And so when this painting is accepted by the Essex Institute, they commissioned someone to come give a big speech about the painting, which I'm not going to do. We'll move past the slide. But as part of that, historians talk about this painting. He points out to them that it's a shame that he doesn't have, as he puts it, a tablet with his name on it. But family still does nothing. So eventually, his house burns down. It burns down in the late 30s. It's 1940 when it's finally knocked down at that point. So it was over behind the home for the deaf. It doesn't exist now. It would be behind the bowling alley, really, at this point. It's just houses. There's nothing to see if you go over there. And of course, once it's knocked down, it gets to the 1950s, people move into Danvers, building a lot more houses. So they start to build that neighborhood. And they're digging for a cellar, and you get George Jacobs again from a bulldozer. Now, when his family owned the farm, if they had reburied him with a nice memorial at that point, would have been fairly straightforward to bury someone in the 1850s on your family farm. Pretty normal. In 1950s, if you just find a random body at a construction site, it's a much different situation, and it's far, far stranger. So he goes on a journey here, and what ends up happening is he is given to like a local preservationist in town, Stephen Weston, who was involved in saving Endicott Park, and Glenn Magna has got his big project in Danvers in terms of history. And so someone knows, oh, that guy likes history, give him this box full of bones, and he doesn't know what to do. Thinks it's kind of strange, I would imagine. And so what he does is he keeps the box under his dining room table. An odd decision, and it doesn't really solve the situation. And so it's in his dining room for many years. And eventually one day, he having a nicer home, he has a maid. And one day his maid tells him that she's going to quit if he doesn't get those bones out of that dining room that she's been dusting around for years, has been really creeped out by. And so he wants to get rid of them. He gives them to the cemetery in town, Walnut Grove, over off Sylvan Street by the library. And I'm sure they weren't sure what to do with this odd donation. So over there, they have some buildings that used to be used in the winter. You couldn't really bury people in the winter because the ground would be frozen and not having power equipment. So what they do is they have these vaults for the winter. They just put bodies on a shelf for a while, and then when spring came, they'd bury someone. So they put him in this vault, and he's there for years. There's no real effort to rebury him because it's strange. And it's also strange because they're not positive it's him. Again, it's one of those probably. And eventually he's given to somebody else. He sits in a private home for a while, ends up in a glass box that used to be used for one of those like model ships that one might build and put on like a bureau or a table. And he then winds up at Danvers High School. The Historical Society used to have sponsor like antique sales. Not quite a yard sale, like an antique sale. And as part of this is 1968. As part of it, they tried to set up a table that had like real historical items you could go over, read about, learn something about local history. That was the concept. And one day, somebody brought George Jacobs as the show and tell. They brought Jacobs. They somehow talked the Essex Institute into loaning them Jacobs canes, which I'm sure they would not loan out today to anyone. They loaned them Judge John Hathorne's notebook that he had during the witch trials. And so all of this is actually one of the deeds to the nurse house. They always copy the deed to the nurse house as well. As all this table, people come by, they see him. Seems very strange, but still not buried. And so he ends up eventually, the Danvers Archives, the Affected Nurse House, the Historical Society, they get together around 1992, the 300th anniversary, and try to resolve this real irregularity. And so the first thing that they do to memorialize Jacobs is not really for him, but it's for everyone. They build the memorial to the witchcraft victims of Hobart Street near Gates Field. That's where the meeting house in Salem Village used to be. So his name and his quote about burn me or hang me is on the back wall, along with Rebecca Nurse's statements of innocence, all 19. But it's not really him specifically. It's not done by his family. He's just included among all the others. It is a fantastic memorial, though. Here we have up front, it's the Book of Life, so it says, if you can't quite read with the light. And the idea of that's really two reasons. The idea was in 1692, if you were a witch, it meant you signed the devil's book, signing away your soul. Whereas in the Bible and Revelation, when it comes to the Last Judgment, someone on the Last Judgment opens the Book of Life that has the names of all the people going to heaven. So there's that sort of imagery in it, that these people have been redeemed in that sense. And they've also been redeemed in the sense that the Book of Life is the historical record. Where all these people were believed guilty at the time, but now we know, because of historical research, this is, nobody was guilty, it's all absurd. And so finally, August 1992, there's a quiet little burial in the Nurse House Cemetery. Very few people are there. A couple of reporters are invited to report on afterwards, but no publicity is done about it at the time. With the idea being, many of the events in Salem in 1992 turned into really big, like commercial events, celebrating the 300th anniversary. And there's a fear that it would kind of become a spectacle if people heard that they were reburying a convicted witch. So after he's reburied, there's another ceremony where the public's invited and they can come see his grave. He has a nice reproduction headstone, and it says, "Here lies buried the body of George Jacobs." Now, it's very likely to be George Jacobs. Can't be 100% sure this far away, but again, his location. Also, when his bones are examined by a doctor or pathologist, and they decide that it's the right, he's the right race, that he is a European settler, he's the right age, that he had like really terrible arthritis in his knees. We know he had 2 canes, so he must have had really terrible arthritis. And not being buried with the rest of his family is highly unusual for the Puritans. They don't just bury one person randomly. That's very strange. And so with the family tradition, we know the images of people pointing right where he was. So we're pretty confident it's him, but you can never be 100% sure, I suppose. And so then in August 92, he's finally reburied, but as it began, when he's reburied, he still is just a tiny little stone compared to Rebecca Nurse, who was memorialized way before him in terms of time, memorialized by her family, not just the community, the general community 300 years later. And also the location, it's the Nurse family cemetery. So she's memorialized in her family cemetery, whereas George Jacobs, he's not related to anybody in there. It would just seem like a likely spot to put him with the idea that Rebecca Nurse was there. So even at the end, he's not with his family in his final resting spot, since his family didn't want to be buried next to him in the first place when he ends up there. So here we have the unequal legacies, and it really is the actions of the family that I think causes this difference. Thank you very much. Thank you for coming.
Hey Dan, where is the Jacobs family buried? Do you know?
So with his generation,
Yeah.
we don't really know. So many families at that point in time wouldn't have actually had a nice grave like that. Even with Rebecca Nurse's family, the next generation, some of them are just stones in the ground. It's not an anonymous grave because the family knew who was where, but their name was never carved on it, they've been lost. So as to his specific generation, we don't really know. As to his children, we don't. Later, they're in a cemetery in Salem with the memorial, Broad Street. Which is not the memorial, but they're in Broad Street with Judge Coleman as well. Some of his descendants of the next generation.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Just a quick question. How old was his granddaughter who testified against him?
Oh, she was 17. Yep. And so she would have been about the same age as many of those young women who had lodged accusations against him. She actually fits right in that age range as them, both of them.
How did the Proctor Ledge come about? That was just recently.
Yeah. So with Proctor's Ledge in Salem is believed as the most likely spot that these 19 people were executed in 1692. It's most likely. With that, it had been known for a while that it was probably there since the early 1900s. There was a Salem historian, Sidney Hurley, who mapped out every inch of Salem and who owned like a whole part of land at that point in time and did real research into like real estate. And he came up with the idea that's the most likely spot. And the reason for that is it's on the main road out of town. And kind of contrary to a stereotype, you didn't ordinarily execute someone like the middle of the town. You executed them like right at the city limits, basically, which would have been there. It was public land, the common land. Some people had assumed it was on Gallows Hill, hence the name, that they had been executed. And he really argues against that. At that point in time, that would have been an enormously tall hill, and we know they were brought up there in a cart. It wasn't cleared land, so you would have been going through the wilderness to get there. It wasn't convenient. We know that a huge crowd goes up there, and it's not really feasible with that. So that's why Proctor's Ledge needs to be evidence. So that evidence from about 100 years ago was re-examined by some historians in 2014, and they decided that it still seems like the best bet, and they added the possibility that only one or two descriptions of people wrote where they witnessed them being hanged, in terms of like where they were standing when they witnessed it. So if you look at it on a map, that spot could line up with their descriptions. Their descriptions are not pinpoint directions, so it kind of leaves a large area on the map where those could kind of line up, but it at least didn't prove it wrong. And so it just means it's plausible in that respect. Yeah?
Where is the Journal of New England History available?
So it will be available this fall. You can get it through your local library, through the databases there. That's probably the best access. They have a website you can order copies. It'll probably cost something, where the library would be free access to it that way.
Is it published by New England History?
It is not. It's published by the New England Association of History Teachers and something else. That's located, it's based at Dean College in Franklin, Mass. That's the university that sponsors it.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other business? All right, well, thank you guys for coming.